Hey Francis. Hey, I wanted to follow through with you and um, read you a little bit about Jamie Sam's experiences. She's the author of Dancing the Dream, and she's also a co-author of the medicine cards that I love for the animal totems. And yeah, the 7 Paths of Sacred Human Transformation. I got this at a library sale like a couple years ago, and it's kind of funny. I haven't read the book like all the way through, but I have like read most of it in the last couple years just by flipping open and reading different sections or like reading different chapters at the time that I just needed it, and it's kind of awesome. Like I'll always go back. Like this is like one of my go-to books sometimes, and when I'm on or traveling different paths, and it's kind of funny how like when I do flip it open, it just like bam, there it is, and it's so funny, like it's uncanny, and so it's funny. So like the way that I've been reading it and like maybe practicing it, it's like a non-linear way. It's not linear, and also like these paths are not linear, and we kind of want to think that everything is, but it's like more like a spiral of, or a labyrinth. And there's a little quote about uh, that, and I'm going to read it first before I share what relates to like kind of shielding ourselves and like the kind of funky things that can happen when we're attuning or when we're waking up to our abilities, or they're coming in for us, or we're ready to claim them, or yeah um, yeah in our paths, as we're growing and changing, yeah and integrating. It's funny how there's new space made for the new abilities to be invited in and be received and worked with and developed and all that. So remember that these paths are not linear. We seem to want to view life like a ladder, but the idea of linear growth disallows the multitude of possibilities that humans are given to grow in different areas simultaneously. To judgmentally label a person as being on a particular path that we view as less enlightened than our own is an erroneous folly created by the shadow side of human nature. All forms of growth are valid, and how we piece these elements together in our lives is an expression of our uniqueness as human beings. So, I like to remember that, and I'm glad to remember that. And because sometimes we can be pretty judgmental or condemning of a lifestyle that doesn't resonate with our own, or isn't like our own, or seems to be lesser than our own, or it's just kind of funny how we have that measuring stick sometimes. And there's something that kind of goes along with that too, like where some people have dominant lessons in certain areas because that's like the life contracts that it's part of that, like that they've chosen. And so some people have chosen to contract and learn like lessons of the physical, where they're maybe playing the archetype of an athlete, or that's like one of their dominant archetypes is the athlete. So they have like different levels of experience, like in having that physical prowess or bodybuilding, or those kinds of things. And that doesn't mean that it's any lesser than someone who chooses to go live in a monastery, like to take up the spiritual pursuits, or someone that decides to go to college and is a scholar and all of that. And so like there is value and the validity in all of our paths, like wherever we're at. And so that's good to remember too, and I'm humbled and grateful to remember that too. And so it's a good reminder. So what was cool was that I had been nudged to pick up this book like a day or two before we talked last time. And then it just like with the conversations we were having, and it was like, man, it reminded me again, I better go look at that book. So, because I knew there was some stuff in there, like that related. And it was so funny. I picked it up and I just flipped it open, and like I got exactly like what I needed, like that related for what I was going through with, yeah, some of the dynamics in my family that I've been working through. And then the next page that I flipped it open to, um, yeah, was totally related. And then the next page that I flipped it open to was what we were talking about, like for energetic protection and all of that, and working with like some of the energies, yeah, that sometimes are hard to know like what to do with, and like, yeah, when we're just opening up to all of that, and it can be really disconcerting and disturbing and discombobulating sometimes. So let me read you a little bit. This is from, let's see, this is from a chapter of the fourth path of initiation, and it's page 156. And just, am I going crazy or just awakening to my potential? So every time we complete a set of lessons that shifts the way we see and the manner in which we live our lives, those changes actually shift our sacred points of view, reconstructing our impressions of physical reality. When the viewpoint shifts radically, certain physiological changes occur. Sometimes we find that our bodies won't work and that we become temporarily unable to judge distances correctly, bumping into door jambs or knocking our shins on furniture, even when we are not in a hurry or being inattentive. So yeah, I noticed that kind of stuff. It seemed like something would jump right in front of me, or like, how did I not clear that wall right there? And I just ran into it. Like, yeah, kind of funny. Or just banging elbows or toes and stuff. And so we may develop a second sight and suddenly be able to see energy or colors around physical objects. Some people begin to develop accurate psychic gifts above and beyond the personal instances found in their own spiritual processes. These gifts can include, but are not limited to, hearing, feeling, or seeing spirits and precognition of future events. As these types of changes occur, we may feel the tendency to defend our perceptions by stating, "I'm not crazy." I have received hundreds of letters where these words preceded a description of a dream or an experience that the writer could not explain. These experiences are all part of the initiation paths. Humankind is experiencing an awakening process on a massive level, and the understanding of that process has been fairly limited or held a secret for thousands of years. There have been times I thought I was going crazy when sudden bursts of psychic energy felt uncontrollable. There were other times that I traveled out of body too far into events I was viewing and wished that I was crazy and that the situation was not real. Beginning in my early 20s, I was asked to use my psychic gifts to describe murderers and to find the lost bodies of victims, but when I turned 27, the violence I encountered became too much for my body to handle, and I stopped. I had assisted in police work that required locating missing children or planes downed in storms, but those activities took a lot of time and energy, and since I never charged for those services, I still had to pay the rent by working 40 hours a week. I had come to an impasse and was unsure whether I should offer my talents in those areas when I had a dream that pointed the way. Spirit showed me how I could use my gifts to bring insight to some hidden and unrecorded parts of human history. In my dream, I was on a seashore in Baja, California, looking over a cliff. Below me, a group of Spanish-speaking archaeologists were digging in the sand. They were working diligently, and finally one man turned and yelled up at me. "Están varados." When I woke up, I was confused because although I speak enough Spanish to get along, I did not understand what the word varados. I looked it up in my Spanish dictionary and was shocked to find it meant vanished or erased. The archaeologist was telling me that some of the history of ancient cultures containing spiritual practices that were needed today had been erased from human memory. Within 48 hours after the dream, a man called me and asked me to participate in a project that used psychic information to locate the ruins of ancient cultures. The target of his first project was the lost library of Alexandria in Egypt, which burned during the time of Cleopatra and was said to contain the greatest stores of ancient wisdom ever held in one place. Some scholars believe that some of the scrolls were removed from the library while it was burning and hidden in another location. Vatican. Sorry, to add to. Though people who have fourth path dreams are not crazy, there are people in the world who are unstable and who believe the illusions or delusions presented by their mental or emotional disorders. So, I'll read that again. Though people who have fourth path dreams are not crazy, there are people in the world who are unstable and who believe the illusions or delusions presented by their mental or emotional disorders. These people are not on the fourth path. They may not yet be on the first path. People who have completed the lessons of the earlier paths have healed any psychological or emotional imbalances. People on the fourth path are functioning, stable human beings who are capable, self-reliant, and trustworthy. They can expect to undergo changes that will open new avenues of energy within the body and can expect to feel the resulting changes in a myriad of ways. Where's the circuit breaker? One of my teachers called these physical changes the rewiring process. All the sensory receptors inside the human body are being activated to accommodate the level of awareness that one is now ready and able to handle confidently. This is not to say that some people on the fourth path are not frightened when the rewiring affects their bodies in ways that cannot be explained by medical professionals. Often during the rewiring process, people will have strange symptoms for which they will seek medical advice, but the doctors find nothing amiss. These sensations are energetic changes that signal the final parts of the fourth path and the beginning of fifth path lessons. They can take the form of internally felt bursts of energy. Sometimes the bursts of inspirational energy and the feminine intuitive aspect of spirit can manifest as physical shaking. Vibrating or pulsating limbs, insomnia, and muscle spasms are common. Unusual headaches or feeling like someone has unzipped your forehead and there is air blowing on your exposed brain can also accompany the rewiring process. Or people might see thousands of tiny bursts of light, whether the eyes are opened or closed. A tingling of energy like tiny needles in the head often accompanies the opening of neurological pathways that have been activated as the energy increase is felt in the body. These and many other symptoms can begin to appear after the turning point on the fourth path. They are different for each individual and can continue in various forms through the end of the sixth path, while on the seventh path these energy surges appear with less and less frequency. As the dreamweave energy is integrated into daily life, we may feel these symptoms intermittently, usually at times when we have spiritual breakthroughs or when we gain new levels of awareness. The more we open to this universal energy, the more the creative fire of life funnels through our physical bodies. So, yeah, I did want to say something about that. So as the dreamweave energy is integrated into daily life, we may feel these symptoms intermittently, usually at times when we have spiritual breakthroughs or when we gain new levels of awareness. So for that, I can definitely say I'm very familiar with those things and those feelings, like those energy surges and things. And I think it's also like some people refer to that as ascension flu, because it's like, yeah, it almost feels like, yeah, it's a really strange sensation where we can feel cold and hot at the same time, or feel like we kind of have a fever, and like kind of chills and aches at the same time. And then sometimes there's like purging and there's a release and like, yeah, all sorts of belly stuff going on. Like we're just like, okay, time to let this shit go now. Like, yeah, in certain ways. And it's like, I've gone through a lot of those, like, yeah, of those symptoms where like I know like when I'm clearing something sometimes, or after I've cleared something energetically, then it's time to clear it or purge it physically too. And like it's like the cells are letting go of old information or old debris and stuff they don't need anymore, code that doesn't fit or resonate anymore. Like yeah, like that kind of thing, I guess. Like energy is information, so yeah. But yeah, it doesn't feel very good sometimes. Sometimes it's more intense than others, and like Yeah, like I definitely have chills and different body fluctuations today, and that started yesterday. And I was like, oh, here we go again. So it's like ascension flu kind of symptoms. But yeah, what does she call it? So while on the seventh path, these energy surges appear with less and less frequency. As dreamweave energy is integrated into daily life, we may feel these symptoms intermittently. So it's like the rewiring process. And yeah, opening of neurological pathways that have been activated as the energy increases felt in the body. So you're not crazy. We're not crazy. Yeah, but it feels crazy sometimes, for sure. Um, oh, the coyote part of this rewiring process can get expensive. I learned the hard way when I was finishing some fourth path lesson and beginning some fifth path challenges. I burned up the electrical system in my car by touching the radio dial. I blew out all the lights on 2 aisles of a department store before I ran from the building in horror with fluorescent bulbs popping directly over my head in every direction I turned. For the next 7 years, I had no other accidents until one day I shorted out all the breakers in the house when I reached over to turn on a lamp. The light bulb exploded into hundreds of pieces, and the electric fan, which was 15 feet away, went up in smoke, even though it was not turned on. 10 years later, the symptoms started again, and in the space of 2 months, I blew up a television set when I touched the remote control, a computer when I touched the keyboard, and my car's electrical system when it was already running and I had touched the cigarette lighter. Oops. The question is, do you laugh or do you cry? The expense of replacing something that you inadvertently fried with excess electromagnetic energy can be a real drag. This phenomenon is common among healers, psychics, dreamers, medicine people, and mystics with monastic lifestyles. Luckily, this does not happen to everyone, and when we become fully grounded, the shocks and disruptions stop altogether. So, yeah, it helps to get grounded, man. Like, yeah, I've noticed. And that's like why I sit on the floor a lot. And I never really realized that's like what I really needed, or that's why I like felt more comfortable or it felt right, is because I really did need help, like getting grounded, like more grounded. And so that's like a way to do it is get on the ground. Yeah. So, but balancing the energy. On the fourth path, we begin to adjust our sacred point of view to include the point zero rest place. At the point of rest, we detach from polarizing everything into either or categories. We release the need to mentally label or develop categories to pigeonhole our life's experiences. This ability to hold the neutral zone of non-judgmental witnesses allows us to become unbiased observers who honor every aspect of human life as a classroom and every human being and part of nature as having something to teach us. The rare quality of being a neutral, unbiased witness is difficult to maintain at all times because we live in a world that is based upon learning through opposites. From the viewpoint of neutrality, all aspects of duality or polarized thinking can be released. We no longer see the world through the lens of opposites or oppositions. We can see all aspects of any situation without having to choose a side or make a judgment. We accept what is without trying to change people or alter life to fit our viewpoints. For instance, several years ago, I saw exactly how energy will manifest the content of the thoughts and feelings it encounters. I was praying with several women in a sweat lodge ceremony at a tribal gathering in the Pacific Northwest. One of the women was grieving the death of her sister. She wailed and released her grief, crying and mourning her loss. In total darkness, the woman next to me began fidgeting and fanning the air around her in order not to take on the negative energy that she felt was flying around the lodge. I saw this woman's fear balloon around her like a luminous cloud, and it actually magnetized other energy to it. The cloud of fear was so thick that it was becoming nearly impossible to breathe inside the lodge. Prior to this woman's fear rising, the grieving woman's tears and wails were running like a river into the earth below the hot stones at the center of the lodge, being returned to the Earth Mother. The direction of the grief energy changed when it encountered the fear of the woman beside me, and it began to direct itself to the luminous cloud surrounding the frightened woman. The ceremonial leader had not poured additional water onto the hot stones, but the heat inside the lodge suddenly became too much for 3 80-year-old grandmothers to bear. The door was open. The grandmothers chose to leave the ceremony. That night I was shown that all the energy in the universe is neutral. We are the human conductors that direct energy through our thoughts. If we use words to label emotion or energy in motion, the energy begins to transform, becoming the embodiment of our judgments. If we think and direct our opinions toward anything we feel energetically, the form of the energy will change into the thought that was sent. So I'm going to read that again. If we think and direct our opinions toward anything we feel energetically, the form of the energy will change into the thought that was sent. Our thoughts, opinions, and judgments direct energy, which responds by manifesting the exact changes that our thoughts contain. Suddenly, I was in the middle of a big aha. I had actually seen it happen. I had intellectually understood the process in principle, but I had never before seen the actual energetic flows and magnetism that are transformed by thoughts. To see how thoughts change energy, we can choose to review every situation we have encountered in the past, realizing that the wisdom we gain allows us to see the overview of what occurred from an unbiased perspective. We learn how to acknowledge the validity of all of the individual roles played out, as well as how to respect the diverse perspectives of all parties involved. The crowning lesson of the fourth path teaches us that all energy in the universe is neutral and can be accessed if we hold the proper alignment found in the unbiased perspective. The human consciousness is able to use that universal neutral energy when it refrains from taking on the mental judgments of being seen as good or bad. Prior to this transformation, we experience life from a sacred point of view that contains our positive or negative judgments of life's events. The human observer is the sole determining factor of how events are viewed mentally through the brain's duality. For this same reason, physicists are discovering that subatomic particles will group together in a manner that duplicates the researcher's thoughts or expectations. This variable makes most experiments totally unrepeatable by other scientists because of the various preconceived concepts or expected outcomes held by different researchers. Thought precedes form. As we think, so we will experience. Thoughts begin taking form when emotion is added to the equation, becoming thought forms, which can clutter any path of endeavor until we return to neutral position by recalling our energy from ideas or emotions that create opposing forces within us. Yeah. Dang. Thoughts begin taking form when emotion is added to the equation, becoming thought forms, which can clutter any path of endeavor until we return to neutral position by recalling our energy from ideas or emotions that create opposing forces within us. The majestic silence at the door between worlds. On a spiritual level, if we do not polarize our thinking and are able to hold a neutral, unbiased view, we are allowed to view all possibilities, probabilities, and potential outcomes held within the dream weave. This is why many people on the fourth path who have begun to develop this skill can suddenly become gifted seers or dreamers, healers, psychics, or visionaries. These individuals have found the center point within themselves and have embraced the neutral zone without preconceived notions. My elders called this state of awareness or place within human conscious, the crack in the universe. The door that leads to every non-physical level of consciousness in our universe is opened when we can consistently arrive at the neutral state of being with open hearts, loving life and others unconditionally. The accuracy of our observations and our impressions of what we explore in the unseen worlds of consciousness totally depends upon our ability to maintain the centered state of unbiased neutrality and an inner stillness devoid of chatter. That state of being is the door jamb that keeps the portal open to the dream weave, whether we are awake or asleep. The lessons of the fifth path are where we hone the skills of focus and intent that are required in these realms of consciousness. Some people do experience such frightening paranormal events and unexplainable physical symptoms that they revert to the safety zones they found on the third path. They can allow their fear of the unknown to keep them on a treadmill where they use the processing or healing techniques of the third path to continuously fix what is wrong with them, imaginary or not. This refusal to become healed healers and to move forward is a form of spiritual denial created by fear. In some cases, we could apply the term enlightenment junkie to those who dabble at healing the same issues they have already dealt with for years and years, using the process as a form of avoidance so that they will not have to confront getting on with their lives. A healed healer is anyone who has become fully present, having released his or her past experiences, issues, feelings, and fears. A healed healer confronts and handles any new issues as they appear and does not allow the wounds of the past to influence the present moment. This individual can then offer loving assistance to others who are also healing their lives. There are many kinds of healers. The act of supporting others in their growth process makes everyone a healer who can listen, offering kindness and encouragement, becoming a living extension of the principle of love. I like that. I'd have forgotten that. I am a living extension of the principle of love. The fourth path melds with the fifth as we acknowledge the journey of our spirits through time and space while we also maintain grounding and balance in our daily lives. The level of intensity continues as we learn how to live our physical lives with ease and in harmony while also experiencing the unseen worlds of the dreamweave. The metaphorical trials by fire of the fourth path continue as we up the ante in this poker game of spiritual evolution. Coyote is the card dealer who deals from the top and from the bottom of the deck in order to remind us of our former lessons and how they apply to the poker hand of cards that we are presently playing. Stoic poker faces are not required, nor are they allowed, if we are to successfully play the game with the humor of authentic masters. As you look around the table to see the other players, it comes as no surprise that there are none, just reflections of the many faces you personally have worn from time to time. Coyote smiles knowingly as he motions to the walls surrounding the poker table, and you notice that the walls are mirrors reflecting room after room of poker tables filled with players out into infinity. The human beings playing at those tables, reflected in all of the mirrors, are focused on one thought. They all think that their poker game is the only game in town. Gotcha. Which that's pretty funny because we forget that we're playing a game, and we forget that we're playing, and we forget that we're playing at being. Yeah, and then we get to remember again. Yeah. And we get to take accountability. And so, yeah, here's to accountability, and here's to learning and healing and growing and discovering. Yeah. All this love there is. All this love we are. Here's a little poem. Oh, and a little quote. So, humans have earthly roots, and the spirit has wings. By honoring the lineage of being the Earth Mother's children, and by finding our spiritual roots in the dreamweave, our spirits embrace our bodies, and together both are allowed to take flight. Sissy Laughing Crow. The union of worlds. I listen to the whispers of the small, still voice within. I feel the awesome power of the sacred mystery therein. And there within the mystery of the material and the unseen, I discover my own true essence, where the two worlds convene. I connect with the essence of my spirit's state of grace, while I learn to embody the sacred lessons I embrace. I stand between the two worlds, holding both sacred points of view. By knowing that the two are one, my sacred journey begins anew. Jamie Sams. So, yeah, I hope that's a little helpful, like, to kind of explain some of that in like those physiological, neurological ways. Yeah. That it's like just part of like that integration process, and yeah, opening up to rewire, yeah, and build new pathways. And that's pretty cool because that's what we're doing, and linking the inner to the outer. Yeah. And it's just kind of a trip in a lot of ways. So I hope you're doing well. And I wanted to thank you again for your message of care and friendship, and like what that held for me, and how much it meant to me and how much, like, I really, yeah, do appreciate what we have to share and what you have to share, and um, our friendship, and yeah, what we get to build and exchange, and yeah, with ease, and yeah, with that mutual care, gratitude, and admiration. So thank you. Thank you. And yeah, so what's been going on? Like, any insights into things? Like, what's been, yeah, shifting in your world? So yeah, I hope you're taking good care of yourself. And yeah, let me know. Like, anytime, no hurries or worries. But yeah, if you want to share anything, always feel free to share. Like, you can message or um, share anything that you feel led to share. So, hey, thanks for being willing, and thanks for listening, and thanks for being open, yeah, to offer, receive, and share. Thank you. Thank you for your care. Okay, take good care of you. I'll talk to you again. Okay, ciao.